Now that President-elect Donald Trump has secured a second term, the question is, what will he do with it?
I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
After inauguration in January 2025, Trump will be back in the Oval Office with the support of the Senate, the Supreme Court, and possibly, although we're still waiting to see, the House. So to deliver his mandate, he's going to act on his campaign promise and fix what he called a broken country. He said this week he's going to act on promises delivered. So to take a closer look at what those are, let's bring in Paul Gardner. He's Associate Professor of Political Studies at Queen's University. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Paul, if we take a close look at the people he has kept close to him in these last weeks of the campaign, I'm talking about Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., Elon Musk, who could we expect to see as part of his transition team?
Well, I think that a big priority for President Trump is going to be having people who are loyal to implementing his agenda. Right? So oftentimes presidents place a big emphasis on their first 100 days of policymaking. And so Trump is probably going to be looking for people that are going to help him have a clear expression of his policy aims. But experience also matters, right? So people like Elon Musk aren't going to necessarily have the government experience to make sure that those policies can be implemented effectively.
Although this would be something similar he did to 2016 when he brought into the White House people who didn't necessarily have political experience. They had, loyalty to him and experience in their fields. We saw that didn't work really well for his transition team in the first couple of years of 2016. Would he make that same move again, or would he look to bring in more people with experience?
Well, I think that largely Trump has developed sort of a group of people around him that are committed to his goals. I think this time he's likely to come in with more support for the policies that he wants, right? Even if we look to something like Project 2025, which Trump has disavowed on the campaign trail, or at least tried to distance himself from, a lot of the goals in that sort of policy are directed towards things that Trump cares about as well. It's just a demonstration that he's likely to find people that will support his goals this time around. And I know that that's going to be a big priority for the administration.
He's got a lot of goals, or what he called promises, and he gave a speech where he said promises made will be promises kept. And one of the big ones is reducing bureaucracy. He's talked about getting rid of the FDA and expanding his presidential powers. So how does he plan to do that? What could that look like?
So the largest one is going to be related to civil service reforms. So right now, the federal government, the vast majority of people working in the executive branch have civil service protections. That means they're careerists that have expertise in the particular area that they work in, and they serve from administration to administration, regardless of partisanship.
Yeah, we have that here in Canada, too. Same thing.
Right. So Trump has proposed removing civil service protections from a large number of those positions and replacing them with people that he believes will be more likely to implement his agenda. Trump has been very clear that he sees that this administrative state with civil service protections as being part of what he sometimes calls the deep state. And so for him to implement his agenda, he'd like to see more people with his shared partisan goals in government.
Well, that's really interesting, because the number one issue across the board that people who voted him into office said is for them is the economy and is affordability. So then how does changing presidential powers or removing, protection for civil servants then benefit taxpayers in America? How does that build the economy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It remains to be seen exactly how Trump would use this sort of newfound authority, or even if it would stand up in the courts to remove those civil service protections. I think one misnomer about presidential politics is the extent to which presidents can control the way that the economy is developing. Certainly some of the actions that Trump seems likely to take may have some economic effects, right? On the campaign trail, Trump has talked quite a bit about implementing new tariffs, which will certainly have downline economic effects, though I'll leave it to the economists to talk about what those might be. But it's clear that it's not just the civil service changes that are going to matter here.
I want to ask you really quickly about one he has said over and over again he will do in his first 100 days, and that is over immigration. He wants to deport immigrants, he said, are in this country illegally. He's blamed them for a number of systemic problems in the United States. Can he do that legally? What would that look like?
So there are a lot of different ways or lots of different powers that the president has to adjust immigration policy. The Biden administration in recent weeks and months has been tougher on immigration. And so there's only so much room to go. I could see Trump placing new emphasis again on building his wall. But another potential area is pressure that could be put on judges who hear immigration cases. Those judges are part of the executive branch rather than traditionally part of the judicial branch for judges that hear other kinds of cases. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that they're potentially subject to pressures coming from the top, coming from the president. And so if Trump asks them to try to dispose of more cases more quickly, the judges might get the sense that their jobs depend on disposing of more cases, and that might mean disposing of them with resolutions that look like removal orders.
It's a long list of promises, and we only had time to touch on a few, but Paul Gardner, Associate Professor of Political Studies at Queen's, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.